Hi everyone, it's Kim from the Shamrock Quilt Studio. So glad you could join us today. We're going to have a little different show. Today we're going to kind of summarize where we are in some of our projects and a little bit about what the next steps are in all of those and what you can expect to see coming up in the next couple of weeks on the channel. So grab something to drink and we'll be right back. And welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Hi everyone, and thanks for coming back. Today we're talking a little bit about our projects. We've got a lot going on here in the studio, and sometimes it gets a little confusing to me what I'm supposed to be working on, what needs my attention, and what can kind of hang out for a while. So today we're going to talk a little summary of all of our projects, and then a little heads up for you as to what's going to happen here on the channel. Let's start out with Barnstar. And we're going to have another video on Barnstar Friday, so I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail, just a little update. We have all 16, is that right? 16 by 4 by 4, 6, yeah, 60. We have all 16 by 16 blocks for the Barnstar project finished. And then we have that center block that's 24 by 24. And I spent a little time last night looking at the arrangement of that, trying to do some math in my head, and I'm thoroughly confused. I think I've got a plan going forward, but we will have a little more information about that in Friday's video. But what I wanted to share today about that is I had the opportunity to do a little bit of shopping yesterday, and I got down to Joann's. And if you've been watching any of my videos, you know Joann's is at least 30 minutes from my house if there's no traffic, and I can get down there a reasonable amount of time. It's about 30 minutes one way. So I had the opportunity, I was in the area yesterday, I stopped in. While I was there, I was looking for another pink to go with our EPP project, and then even a little light blue maybe to throw in. I did find a bluish green, very pale fabric that I thought would work when you look at the inspiration piece, but as I put it with all the others, it didn't really work. So I kind of set that aside and then started focusing on what could I get there that I really needed. And my mind flashed back to Barnstar, because when I'm sitting there looking at the big block and then the smaller blocks surrounding it, we've got a lot of margin to fill in between those. And even though I've probably got a few yards of my white fabric left, I didn't think I had enough. And I did purchase it from Joann's, and it was on sale yesterday. And we're talking about what was yesterday. Yesterday was the 18th of May. So it was on sale. And it was on sale for usual price is $6.99. It was on sale for $4.99, and that's in the range of price that I usually like to keep most of my stuff. You can't always do it, but sometimes you can. So I went ahead and bought 5 more yards of just the white fabric, and this is the So Classic solid white fabric. I have not laid it up next to, let me just say, this is the EPP white. Here's the Barnstar white. And it looks like the same thing. So we're in good shape. And like I said before, if you have to swap out fabric on a quilt, if you've used everything you have, you don't want to get halfway with a section and then have to stop. It's much better if you can finish a section and move on to a new section with a new dye lot. And I don't know, excuse me, I don't know that you can always tell on fabrics if it's a different dye lot. You can on yarns because they post that on the labeling. This to me with the eye is very close. Now, once we get it made and it's laundered a couple of times or a couple of years have gone by, you may see a little bit of difference in the fabric. If you think to some of the appliances in your house or your car. Let's say I have a whitish car, and because the materials are different between the metal and the plastic or the PVC or whatever they're using, after a while those different materials age differently and they change colors differently. So it is possible that along the lines there will be a difference in these two fabrics. But if you keep your quilt design so that complete segments are the same and you have to change, at least it will look like it was intentional and just not haphazard. So in my case, the fabric I already have was used for the actual blocks, excuse me, and the new fabric will be used for the borders and the margins in the middle and the white space on the quilt. So there's 5 more yards of that. We should be in excellent shape to do whatever we want to on the top of that quilt. Okay, let's move on to EPP. We've got an EPP project, and as you can see, I'm keeping my pieces right now in this holiday, I guess it's a cookie tin, but it's got a top on it and I can close it up and they don't get scattered everywhere, which if you could see what I see, it's pretty scattered. I am past due for a sewing room cleanup, and that's probably going to happen in the next week or so. But I'm keeping them in here, and I have downstairs what I finished in the last couple of days. I've got a bunch of white ones done, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 or more, and there's a few of the darker greens too. So we are moving right along with this. I need to pick up on the very pale green and do some more of those. And I need to do some of our feature fabric and do some of those. And then once I get that done, I'm going to sit down again and start looking at what does the center of our design really need to look like. Last week I showed you an overhead view of playing with those pieces. And that was before I got the white and started working on the white. So now that I can infuse that in there and make it pale, like I said, we were going to move those darker fabrics out a little bit. So we start out very pale and delicate in the middle. Okay, so we've talked about EPP. EPP is moving right along. And I was just looking at this. Oh, those are my calculations. This white fabric, I got a little confused yesterday, I'll be honest, because I could not remember which EPP white, what fabric I was using on the EPP project versus which white fabric I was using on the Barn Star. And let me tell you, your best tool for that is probably your phone. If you carry your phone around and it has the ability to take pictures, when you purchase fabric, take a picture of the end of the bolt. And I don't have one I can grab a hold of, but the end of that bolt tells you who manufactured the fabric, the SKU number, the colors, and if you need to put a note attached to that or a note in the notes function of your phone saying where you bought it and how much it cost, that might be helpful as well. I find that if I take a picture of the end, I've got everything there but where I bought it. And sometimes how you take that picture, if you could capture some of the background, that background may tell you where you bought it as well, because the fabric stores always look a little different, right? But I knew it didn't come from Hobby Lobby, because Hobby Lobby is where I bought the fabric for the EPP. And that of course, is not an endorsement of Hobby Lobby. It's simply the fact that that is the only fabric store in the city in which I live. So other than a few bolts at Michael's, and that's pretty much it. So I have to rely on them to supply fabrics for some projects, especially if it's something I'm going to have to go back and buy more, or I'm coordinating or something like that, because they're local. Okay. What else are we working on? We're working on our design a quilt with the sunflower, and to be completely honest, I haven't touched it. There's just so much going on right now, and I foresee a bit of a change in my schedule coming up in the next couple of weeks, and I think that when that happens, I'll be able to roll back into that. There's just so much else going on right now, and I know that you as a viewer like to see a completed project much as I do, so I'm trying to work on the things that we can keep moving towards at least being a finished top or flimsy. Okay, the next thing up on our agenda is our block of the month, and we've completed February, March, April, and May. And of those, I was most happy with February, March, and May. April, I wasn't too happy about, and I am planning still on going back and revisiting that. When we move into June, I want to give you a little sneak peek of what we're doing. June is going to be about the beach and what happens at the beach, because a lot of people take their vacations in June. And when I was trying to decide, there's a lot of things that typically happen in June. You think of June for weddings, for graduations, for vacations. And when I asked around a little bit, what came back was not the vacation, not the weddings or the graduations, it was the vacation. So what I've decided to go with is a beach ball theme. And this was created using my customized EPP method. So I took this design, and here's the little drawing I printed off of the web, and I just extended these lines over into the center, and then I was able to cut out individual pieces of just a cardstock, and then I created little EPP pieces, much like you would create a applique, and then I stitched them together the same way you do the EPP. So that's that. We're going to cover that a little bit more in next Wednesday's video. We're going to do our block of the month. So I need to just kind of finalize the design of the block itself and get the PDF for anybody that wants that. I will tell you this, it just came off the internet, so if you find a sketch out there somewhere of a beach ball, or if you're particularly talented at drawing, you could draw your own and make it any size you want. I did have a bit of a problem figuring out the size that I wanted, because the first one I printed out was huge and that wasn't going to work. So we had to reduce it down a bit. Okay, so we've covered the Barnstar project, we've covered the EPP project, we've covered the design your own, and now the block of the month. So that's, I think that's all the projects I have going on. As you can see why I'm a little scattered. The other thing that happened this week is this. I got this cutter. This is a Fisker's 28mm rotary cutter, and I really like it. And I did have to swap back to this one, cutting the bigger pieces. I thought it worked a little bit better. But this one's really good if you're cutting small pieces, like when you're cutting the little triangles for the EPP, those pieces in between. This one is much faster and more precise on when you're cutting. But it needed a blade, and when I looked online, I think I was looking at Fisker's blades for about $14, $15 for 2 blades. And I found this pack on Amazon. And this, it is made in China, which I'm finding a lot of things are. It is a 28mm, and it says it will work in this rotary cutter. So this is a package of 10 blades, and I think it was about the same price as the 2 of the Fiskers. I have no idea if it's going to work as well or not, but I like the little tiny container it was in. I like the fact that there were 10. So if something happened to one, I wasn't buying 1 blade for the full amount. I haven't put this in the cutter yet, but that will probably be happening fairly soon, because this one does have a little bit of a burr somewhere. And as cheap as I am, I would love to be able to just keep using it, but it does get kind of irritating when you have to go back and clip those 2 or 3 little threads. All right, my purchases, my projects, that's where I am. Shared a tip with you today about taking a picture of the end of the bolt of any fabric. You could also use that tip too when you're out shopping for fabrics and you see something you think you like. You could take a picture of it, take a picture of the end of the bolt and maybe the rack so you know what store you're in case you walk away not buying it and decide later you want to buy it. At least you'll know where it is if you've got more than one store that you shop in. So that kind of wraps up our video today, and we've talked about all of our projects, what's happening with them, what kind of status they're in, and what needs to happen next on them. So we will have a video on Friday talking about how we're proceeding with the Barnstar project. And we will come back next Wednesday with our block of the month for the month of June. So be sure not to miss that video next Wednesday about the block of the month. I think it's going to be a good one. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give us a thumbs up, share with your friends, and if you have not, please consider subscribing to our channel. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next week at the Shamrock Quilt Studio.